So let's talk about our first macro sociological perspective. Our first sociological perspective is called structural functionalism. And the name of this theory actually tells how this theory envisions society. So remember the name very well. And when you get lost in the theory, just think about, what does the name say about how this theory thinks society works? So before I get a bit more deeper into structural functionalism, let me give you a summary of its most important principles. So structural functionalism is a framework for building theory that sees society as a complex system whose parts work together to promote solidarity and stability, harmony. So stability, solidarity, and harmony are very, very important for this theory. Our lives are guided by social structure. In other words, social structures are relative, stable patterns of social behavior. This framework understands social structure in terms of their functions. So we have structural functionalism. Structures have functions. Society is divided in different structures, and each structure has a function or more functions, and these structures that compose society, when they work together, they promote harmony in society. So society is stable, an ordered system of interrelated parts of social structures, each having its own function and contributing to the overall harmony, the overall well-being of a stable society. So, founding fathers of structural functionalism are Auguste Comte, who is the one who gave sociology its name, Sociology, Herbert Spencer, and Emile Durkheim. And here you see I made a little comic figure of them with their most important contribution. So you can remember Auguste Comte saying to promote social integration during times of radical change. So they really wanted stability. And stability is important. Social change, again, changes, society is recalibrating itself, changing mutations. And these gentlemen were looking for stability, how to understand society, but also how to keep it stable. Then we have Herbert Spencer, who saw society as comparable to a human body. And Herbert Spencer has a background in biology. So for him, it was very easy to see society as a human body. If we see society as a human body, think of your own body. Our body is composed of organs, different organs. I have my heart, my lungs, my stomach, my brains. Each organ has a function. And it's only if each organ works well, doing what it's supposed to be, that I can feel in harmony. I can be healthy. So Herbert Spencer brought that to the table, you comparing society with the human body. And then we have Emile Durkheim. Emile Durkheim, you will read a lot about Emile Durkheim in your sociology book. He's one of the main founding fathers of sociology, of structural functionalism. And he made a lot of very relevant studies that still are very relevant. And Emile Durkheim was interested in social solidarity, what keeps society together, what keeps society in harmony, things like social cohesion. And because of that, he could study a lot of things when they're not in balance, and based his theories on what is a society in balance, how should it look like. So, to repeat, structural and functionalists sees society as a human body. In the way that the skin holds the human body, so too do norms and values bind society together. Structural functionalism sees society as its unit of analysis, big society with different parts. We will talk about these parts later on, what we call social institutions. And we get socialized to be decent citizens, to contribute to society. In unit 6, we will talk about in unit 5, we will talk about what socialization is. So the system, society as a system, regulates itself through what Emile Durkheim calls social facts. And this theory was developed to illustrate how values, culture, and norms control the actions and beliefs of individuals and society as a whole. Remember, Emile Durkheim was interested to know how can society be kept together in harmony? What are the social forces that bind society? What is the glue that binds society? And these are, according to him, social facts. And social facts, think of social facts as things like morality, you know? Morality regulates you. Norms, think of norms of the church, the law, the economy. Rules, social roles. What is acceptable by our society? What is not acceptable? We have beliefs, values, rituals, customs. We all get socialized in becoming functional citizens in society. Everything, and this is very important, everything that deviates from the norm is seen as an anomy. And we will come back to that term, what anomy means. So how does structural functionalism sees society? Just to summarize, society is composed of parts that belong together. Individuals work for the larger society's interests because of social solidarity. So there's moral order, social order in society. These big structures are families, religion, education, and other institutions that teach individuals to help society function smoothly. What happens if you deviate? What happens if you're not doing what you should do in keeping our society in harmony? Then we talk about curbing violations of social norms. Individuals who choose to act against shared cultural norms are violating social norms, okay? And punishment is required. Very, 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 this theory is a very moralistic theory because it tells you what a healthy society should be. And you know, if you're at this moment in time already feeling a lot of things against this theory, it's okay. it's part of the historical movement of sociology, okay? So what happens if you don't comply with what you're supposed to do, what it means to be a righteous, moral citizen? Without punishment, bad behavior would spread like an epidemic in the community. So social facts regulate, so there is social order and harmony. And we will come to that part, but I want to mention it right now. How do structural functionalists see social change? They see social change as something that should go slow, A bit background about Durkheim. Durkheim is very important for structural functionalism because he studied how society changed during the industrial times. Okay, everything was changing, and Durkheim was very interested in seeing how solidarity as an object of study, solidarity, that what kept society together, in itself changed. And he talks about mechanical solidarity in pre-industrial times, solidarity coming from group similarity. Okay, so mechanical similarity is the things that bind us are the things that we have in common. Like maybe we have the same religion, we do the same job, we work the land, okay? And there's kinship between us, maybe we're related. And this is what he calls mechanical solidarity. So the solidarity is there, okay? Most people did the similar types of labor and had similar beliefs. They all were Catholics, they all were Protestants, they all were Jewish, etc. So the religion, okay, was what regulated you, a kind of way to produce mechanical solidarity. So during the Industrial Revolution, we can see that societies became more modern. And what we get then is organic solidarity. And organic solidarity, according to Durkheim, is another type of solidarity. It is based not on the similarities as compared to mechanical, having the same beliefs, coming from the same place, maybe kinship, maybe doing the same job. No, it stems from differences. And you have to see this as the new types of societies that were emerging began to specialize labor. Okay, so branching out specialization in society went hand in hand with a new kind of solidarity, organic solidarity. But what happens when solidarity changes? The type of society we're in is changing. And according to Durkheim, what we see is that modern society imposes fewer restrictions on the individual. And then we have anomie. Remember that wording I said before? Anomie, something what deviates from what should be in society. Anomie is a condition in which society provides little moral guidance to individuals. So there's the fall of morality, according to Durkheim, our guiding principles. Traditional societies are characterized by mechanical solidarity. This mechanical solidarity was a self-regulator force. It kept you in your place. Don't do anything that deviates from what the society thinks is accepted. And so in this new new society, modern society, solidarity stemmed from another root. It came from productive specialization. Here is a summary of how Durkheim analyzed social change during his time. This sheet is very important because it's a kind of brings studies of the Durkheim into one sheet. Society is more than the sum of its parts. It exists as a complex organism rooting in our collective life. Again, the collective is more important than the individual. And how do we have order? Let's summarize again. Social facts. Social facts bring order and they keep this mess beautiful together. Beautiful. Okay, and you see me doing this because we will move and we will give some critique on structural functionalism, just as the other theories. And so what are social facts again? Do you remember? Cultural norms, values, religious belief, the law. They bring order. They regulate human behavior through moral discipline. And just again, remember I said structural functionalism is a very moralistic theory. I want to say even arrogant now in 2020 to, you know, a theory that thinks it knows what morality is and it protects us against ourselves, our desires and impulses. So the question that arises here is, how do structural functionalists see individuals then? How are we? And what are our desires? We will come back to this and we will talk more about this also in the unit that concerns identifying deviant behavior. We build back on structural functionalist theories of Durkheim. What then is anomie and what is deviancy? But back to our social facts that provide social integration. So what we have is what Durkheim calls a collective consciousness. Okay, and traditional societies have a strong collective consciousness, so strong that it punishes anyone who dares to challenge conventional ways of living. Okay, so modern societies, they don't guide us anymore. There's more individual freedom, more individual desire, more individual questioning things like religion. Okay, and we will see this, how it will advance even further. But remember, we're talking about Durkheim, and it's very, very important in sociology to think about the theory when the theory was made. And Durkheim was amidst social change during the Industrial Revolution. He saw how things like religion started to crumble. Okay. Here, I've summarized the difference between a mechanical and an organic solidarity. So, social bonds are based on shared morality that unites members of pre-industrial societies. That's how mechanical society works. In organic society, organic solidarity, modernity generates a new kind of solidarity that is rooted in differences among people whose specialized pursuits make them rely on one another. And this organic solidarity, when we will talk about Karl Marx in another theory that will come after this, in conflict theory, you will see that there's power, a lot of power involved here in the organic solidarity, this new way of organizing ourselves in specialized labor. So the decline of mechanical solidarity is a defining trait of modern society, according to Emile Durkheim during the Industrial Revolution. Okay, back to our structural functionalism. Thank you, Emile Durkheim, for everything we've learned from your very interesting studies of the industrial period. And now let's bring structural functionalism back where we are, okay, in modern times, sitting in a Zoom classroom in 2020 in the midst of a pandemic. So, to summarize, structural functionalist perspective organizes sociological observations by, first of all, identifying various structures of society and then study each of these structures. A social structure is the same as a social institution, what we call a social institution. And what makes up a social institution? In a social institution, you have an organized system where each one of us, okay, have a role that goes hand in hand with a status we have. So for instance, a social institution that is education would be my status as a teacher and your status is a student, and there are some expectations from a teacher. Those are my roles, and there are expectations from a student. And so you can see each social structure or social institution has its roles and statuses, its tasks. And if everybody does what it's supposed to be, the whole can be healthy, the whole can be in harmony, okay? Examples of social institutions are the family, the educational system, politics, religion, mass media, law, economy. These are these big blocks, okay? Here you see some other ones: economics, healthcare, politics and law, the military, okay? And social institutions are important in the sense that each have their tasks, okay? And each task or tasks are working to contribute to society. Again, if all social institutions do their job well, okay, and we are part of different social institutions, if the family educates the children well, then the family is contributing to a social institution. Brings me by things, what makes up a family? And here I begin to question things, and we will go back into what I said, that structural functionalism is a bit very moralistic theory, seen from the eyes of modernity in 2020, but it helped us, it gave us the jargon, the language to see society breaking down in different structures and ask yourself, what is the structure? What does it need to do to have a society function well? Okay, let's refine our language a bit more so we can use structural functionalism, okay? Other contributors of structural functionalism, again, two gentlemen, I'm here again. This is also interested in, if you follow the history of sociological theories, we will come back to that and see who are the ones studying who. Okay, we'll come back to this. So other theorists that have contributed to structural functionalists are Talcott Parson and Robert Merton. And Parson, again, the comic figure I made of Talcott Parson, he says society is a system which parts is a system with parts that have a basic task. All members should be socialized. Again, socialized, you know, made into a decent civilian in order to maintain order. And Merton says social functions can be explained in manifest, latent, and dysfunctions. Okay, so social functions, social institutions, social structures have functions, okay? And we talk about different functions here. We talk about manifest functions, that these are the obvious stated reasons that a social institutions exist, like education sector. The education system is there because it has to educate us. Okay, that's one task, and it has to to make a difference who gets who of a job in the labor market. So it's related with the labor market. Okay, so if it does a job, the labor market can also be organized as it should be. Okay, and this is a manifest function. Okay, institutions have more than one manifest function. So just an example that I gave you of the educational system, not only educating us, but also branching us out where we are supposed to be in the labor market. Then we have other latent functions. These are functions that are not the primary functions. They're there, they're good and useful things that a social institution does, but they're not the institution's reason for existing. Okay, education system keeps us, for instance, on a good path. Okay, so we don't become criminals and get lost. So the other social institution, which is the justice and law system, will take care of us. Okay, but sometimes we also have unintended negative consequences, which we call dysfunctions. What would be a dysfunction of the education system? Good question. That's an assignment for you to think about. So what are core questions that structural functionalists ask? First of all, how is society integrated? What are the major parts of society and how are they integrated? How are they working together? How are these parts interrelated? What are their connections? So how is the economy, okay, related to the health system? How is the education system related to labor market, to the justice system? What are the consequences of each one for the operation of society? These are the kind of questions structural functionalists ask, okay? So it sees society as a whole and focuses on institutions, big institutions, those big blocks, okay? And then it's a macro theory because it's focusing on large structures, okay? And what structural functionalism is good in? It's courting, okay? It looks at society from a distance and it looks for social order and harmony, okay? What is the social integration? So it focuses less on discrete individuals okay? More on social institutions and how they fit together to build social harmony and stability. I'm repeating the social harmony and stability because that's very important to this theory, okay? Each institution cooperates to socialize each of us in adhering to the same set of cultural norms and values. So how does this theory sees social change? Okay, how does it see social change then if it's always looking for harmony, for having each institution function together? Okay, so I have a good example for this, is that during the war, more women entered the paid labor force as men went off to fight. As the war ended, many men came back home and even needed their jobs back, okay? Some women wanted to go back to working primarily in the home, okay? But others didn't. Of course, some, okay, widowed ones, for instance, had to keep working to pay the family's bills. And many women became upset when they were urged to leave the labor force and return home to have babies and keep house. You see where this is going, okay? They resented the fact that their job opportunities were once again limited to just a few fields, like education and nursing. How would functionalists evaluate this situation? How do you think? Of course, they're against gender discrimination in the labor force, but they would want slow incremental change to occur because they could see how immediate gender equality in the workplace would create upheaval. It would be a mess in the labor force. So they might have argued for the benefits of many women returning to unpaid labor, you know, mothering, the usual emotional labor in the home, the caring job, the cooking job, the keeping the house job, okay? But at the same time, they would want to advocate for more possibilities for women in the labor force. But this should go not in a rapid change that would, you know, bring a lot of mass, but I would want to have public discussions, you know, to see if there's a fertile ground for that, and they would see what the possible merits will be, and they would change laws, you know, so they don't discriminate against women. But it should take its time. That's how structural functionalism would see social change. Social change is not necessarily a good thing to structural functionalism. If change is needed, it should be done slowly to not upset the harmony, okay? Large macro structural shifts in society create disbalance. And brings me to what would then be the negative aspects of structural functionalism. So how can we assume that society has a natural order when social patterns vary from place to place and change over time? And by focusing on social integration and harmony, structural functionalism tends to overlook social inequalities. Social inequalities based on social categories such as gender, ethnicity, age, social economic status, etc. So you see, okay, what doesn't structural and functionalism don't see, okay? In that sense, they're just like the blinded man that don't see that there are structural social inequalities. If society is in harmony, why would there be social inequalities? Okay, by focusing on the need for social order, we overlook where change is needed, and change is just the thing that we need to do to make society a more equal society. So, wow, that was a lot, isn't it? For our first structural functionalist, our first macro theory. Maybe it's a good time for you to take a pause, and after coming back, maybe you can, for yourself, do this little assignment, okay? Where you, on a piece of paper, you put these big social institutions, family, education, religion, media, economy, government, healthcare. And in one table, you put what are their main functions, their manifest functions, what are their secondary functions, latent functions, and what would a dysfunction of these social institutions, each one, be? Okay, so, and we're gonna continue with our following macro theory, that is conflict theory.